Evening. We will be having a fascinating session today on APT attack and the need for content disarmament reconstruct by Mr. Suriya Prakash. Mr. Suriya Prakash is founder, shareholder, and director of CY Security, which is a consulting company working on integration of threat intelligence technology, honeypot, CDR research. He is an expert on cyber security and heads their research programs. He's in the Hall of Fame of Google and Facebook after finding critical vulnerabilities in both the organization. He has extensive knowledge on blockchain and has found major vulnerabilities on multiple blockchains. We also have Ms. Anuradha from their team, who's the technical account manager. Welcome to this our program. Over to you, Mr. Surya.
Thank you for the introduction. So I'll just start the presentation if that's fine with everybody. Okay. Are the slides visible? Yep.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Visible.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great. Okay. So just maybe Anu can just message me if I get cut off at any point. So
Sure.
we are Cybersecurity Corp, and we are a US-based organization, and just some information about us. But what we'll be, looking into today is something called Suriya, and that is something that we developed in-house, and this is just purely a technical, technical technical presentation and a technical sort of demonstration for you guys. Okay. So this is part of our overall, threat intel API that we built, and WS7 is what is we made for Suriya. These are all other things. Maybe we can just discuss them towards the end, but this is what we'll be focusing on. And this the main objective of this is to prevent attacks using files. So what is happening here? Okay, this is the threat that is happening. Okay, what is happening here is that Bob the hacker sends an email to Janice posing as her boss John. Yeah, so Bob is the hacker here. The person sends an email, and this person sees the email as coming from her boss John. So this is basically a spoofed email, right? And when this person opens the email, right, they find that it has a PDF attachment, right? And when they open the PDF attachment, the exploit that is there in the PDF gets executed, and their computer gets compromised, right? So now the hacker is in control of Janice's computer. So from there, they'll be able to move in the network, do a lot of other things, right? So basically the person gets access. And how this access happened? Because this Janice person opened a file. This person did not run a executable. This person did not install anything. This person simply opened a PDF file. Okay, so that is the vector of attack that a CDR aims to fix. So it's not only PDFs. This method of attack, earlier there used to be, like I'm sure many of you are aware, malware used to be spread just as is, right? People used to just send exes or com files, and that slowly started getting blocked by both the email providers and the email clients also, right? And so cyber criminals had to move towards new methods to hide that they're trying to infect a person, right? So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to hide that whatever the content they're sending is not a malware, right? And this method of using PDFs, doc files, image files to infect people is gaining ground, and it is something that keeps happening now, right? And these files have become part of our digital work, because working with documents and PDFs is something that is happening every day in a lot of organizations, right? And preventing zero-day attacks and things like that when it comes to these sort of attacks becomes very difficult. And there was even a recent case, I think a couple of years back, where a ransomware group gained access to the NHS, if I'm not wrong, right, which is the UK's medical care system. And one of the infection methods was using one of these sort of files which look like a doc file, and when it is opened, the malware is installed. And this has been used all around, and this is a very favorite of APT groups, especially state-sponsored APT groups, and there has been very specific targeting of government agencies and government organizations, right, using these exploits. So basically what happens is the weaponization of PDF doc and doxes, and and it is very difficult to fix, because what happens is that when there is a exe, right, the system can build rules saying, executables cannot be downloaded and run, or you can have a company wide policy that, executables should not be executed unless they come from a specific location or they're approved by the administrator. But when it comes to a doc file or a PDF file, you cannot go for permission for every single doc file that you're going to open, right? Or in that case also, you cannot go get permission for every single PDF file that you're going to open. And that becomes a vector of attack. And it's not only small organizations that become victims of this. Malicious PDFs have also been used to attack Google and Adobe. And the strange thing about this is that Adobe is one of the creators of a very popular PDF reader called Adobe PDF Reader. Yes. So these attacks are against everybody and anybody. And that is what we are trying to understand in these slides now. So these are just two different scenarios. Okay. And how a file might end up in a, victim's computer. So in example one, right, we'll be looking at it mainly from a financial sector point of view, right? So in example one, a bank might publish a link on the portal for customers to upload their update or upload their KYC documents, right? And in this location, the hacker fills the KYC portal, and they're impersonating a valid customer, and they upload a file with exploits, right? So this file is a PDF file, but it has an exploit hidden into it, or it's a doc file and it has an exploit hidden into it, right? Then when the bank's backend team checks this file, right, then that computer gets infected. And as you are, I'm sure, well aware that this people who are checking this KYC are not only having access to this person's specific KYC, they're having access to basically everybody in the bank's KYC. They'll be able to do lookups, they'll be able to do searches within internal applications. And if that computer gets compromised, right, then the hacker can take control of the entire network. Another scenario might be that instead of directly sending to somebody else, the attacker might send it to the HR portal, or they might use a intermediary portal, like if HR is working with another organization, or a legal department is working with another organization, and they need some documents. An attacker can infect a secondary organization, and from that organization they can send documents saying, this is the legal documents that you asked for, and then take over the systems, right? So all of this is possible. And also many of these malwares are now built with proxy aware, right? So by proxy aware, I mean even if the organization is making use of a proxy to access the internet, the malware can use the proxy configuration already configured, or the malware can tunnel out using other methods like DNS communication, and connect back, basically, right? So this is the attack that might happen. And what is CDR? I guess I didn't get to that, right? CDR is content, disarm, and reconstruction. So that's what we are going to be seeing now. Okay. So I'll show you two demos. One is of the PDF exploit. So we'll just go through that, and then we'll come back to this slide. Yeah. Hope this is visible now, right? So there are two files here. One is the evil.pdf, which is of course containing the malware, and original.pdf, right? And we also have a checker program, right? That we'll just see. So when we run the original.pdf, right, through the checking tool, this tool is something we use in-house to detect specific Yara rules that might get triggered, and this system has found nothing here with the original PDF file. But when we do the evil.pdf, right, then it will find that the system is having a suspicious JavaScript object. It is finding that this file is an embedded PDF file, and it is finding there's a exe file within the PDF. So this is all just a detection of that PDF having something malicious inside, right? But what we need to do is we need to disarm it, right? So we run it through the CDR engine, okay, and we give the input as evil.pdf and the output as clean.pdf, and it gets cleaned and saved as clean.pdf. That's just the name that we've given just for presentation's sake. But the clean.pdf gets generated, right? And yeah. So when we run the clean.pdf, right, through the again checker, it will find that there is nothing written. That means the exploit and all the embedded things have been removed, and a new PDF file has been created. So this is not a malware scan or anything like that. This is just a check to find specific locations which might have exploits or specific sets of instructions that might trigger a Yara rule. So that's what's happening here, right? The clean PDF will give a clean verdict. The PDF with an exploit added will give the verdict infected, and once it goes through the CDR system, then the verdict is cleaned. So we'll see the same with docx. Docx is a little bit more complex. So I'm sure you're aware that a doc file is more complex compared to a PDF file, right? So a doc file is more like a archive, and it's having a lot of content inside, right? So we just check the original docx, which is the file without any malicious code, right? There's nothing detected by our checking program. And then we find that there is a evil.doc. Of course, that is containing the malware. So you can see it has detected the web settings in the web settings.xml, right? That there is some code being injected here. There is a remote template being loaded, and this is a type of exploit, and it is saying this is a high risk content. Okay. And again, the doc file is sent, and what actually curiously what we do here is that we output a PDF file, right? So input might be a doc file, the output is a PDF file, because the PDF is a much more trusted format and a much simpler format compared to a doc file. A doc file is a very complex and complicated format. So we generate a PDF file so that when the person looks at it, they are quite sure that it is a clean file. And of course, it's run through the checker again, and we can see that it has not detected anything. So basically, we had an infected file here, right? And it goes to the CDR engine, and then it gives out a cleaned file, right? So we have, so this is just the two different systems, right? So this is the tunneling.
Suriya, yes, can you please go back to the previous slide if you don't mind?
Yes, sir.
So what I understand is that first box, it's an input which we have received. We do not know whether it's a clean or infected. Am I right?
No, this is the original file which doesn't contain anything. Yes.
Oh, okay. Name of the file is clean.doc, just for the.
Yes.
No,
yes.
Output is clean.doc, right?
No, sir. This file is clean. We are just running it to the checker, right? This is the result of the check actually. So when we run a normal file through, it will come clean, of course, right? Then when we run the doc file through, it will come as infected.
No, I got it. So that first box is that source file which we received it. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And
no, the first file is a clean file, which is not contained, which is unedited.
Okay.
Which is not having any exploit in it.
Okay.
And this is the doc with exploit, and this is the doc with with the exploit removed.
After that, the CDR is run on it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Got it.
Yes, sir. So this is the flow that we were discussing right now, sir. So the file is run through. Then the system that we went through is that first it goes through the exploit checker, right? Then both for doc and docx is the same logic for both. It gives a verdict as infected or not infected. And then again, the file is sent through the engine, CDR engine, and then output cleaned PDF is generated. And same with doc file, it gives a verdict of infected or not infected, and then the output of cleaned doc is provided. Any idea why we run the verdict? We run it through the CDR even if a system is coming as infected. See, regardless of whether it is infected or not infected, the file is run through the CDR engine. Can anybody guess why we require to again clean it anyways? Anybody? Maybe it's a chat. Okay. Okay, so why we get the verdict also, even if the file is anyway going to be clean, is that we want to know whether the person who is uploading the file, whether if they are a logged in user or they are a traceable user, we want to know whether the person is who the person is, basically who is uploading the malicious file. See, the CDR engine will clean the file regardless whether it is an infected or not infected file, but when we run it through the exploit checker, we get an output saying whether it is infected or not infected, and then we can determine this specific user. Maybe he has uploaded an infected file once, but he uploads it 2-3 times, or the person does it over multiple same IP address uploads the file, which is containing infected docs or PDFs. Then we can take further actions as the application developer. They can take further actions to either restrict the user, right, or block the user from uploading further files, and do some sort of checking, because these are all going to be used on mainly financial platforms, right? So you might even request that person to not upload the files again, and to come to the branch or the physical location and then provide the file, which can be then cleanly scanned using the organization's own scanning machine, and then upload it. So there are two people who might upload an infected file, of course. One is somebody who is intentionally trying to infect the backend or the backend team, right? That is one. That is always a chance. But another case that might not get that much of an attention is some user, right, who's a legitimate user, but that person does not know his computer is already having malware, and that malware, what it is doing, it is automatically inserting all these exploits into every single doc or PDF file that person owns, right? So you want to alert this person from the bank's or the financial organization's point of view, saying your system is not secure, your something is causing all the files you upload to be infected, so you should do a check. And this can also help with preventing abuse and frauds from this person's computer, and it will help save that user also. So that's why the verdict of infected or not infected is also taken into account. So before we just go into the others, I'll just show you what so we saw the original file and the evil file, right? So the original file is the PDF as it is, okay, which doesn't contain any exploits. It's just a file, just a normal PDF file. Evil PDF is the PDF with the exploit. So you can see I'm actually just comparing the two files here. Hope it's visible. So one is original on the left and the other one is evil on the right. You can see the file is basically the same, right? It's just the top bit of the file I'm looking at. Everything is the same, but you can see in evil.pdf there is a lot more content. You can see from the scroll bar size, this is a small file, this is a large file, right? There's a lot of thing to scroll through, right? So what the attacker has done, he has embedded the exploit inside, and you can see here, see, basically here the file ends on the original file, but here in the evil PDF, right, you can see there is a embedded, and it's an embedded object, and this is basically the executable code, right? And this is being packed inside. So I'll show you what that looks like. Yeah. So this exploit, what it does, right? This is actually a little bit requires user interaction. there are some exploits which don't require user interaction. So here what happens is the PDF reader will give a message saying to view the encrypted content, please tick do not show this message again box and press open. So this is actually part of the text, right? So what the user will end up doing is they will end up clicking the button which will execute this code. So what this code is doing, just to get a bit technical here, this program will run cmd.exe, right? And then it will call the executable that is embedded on top, basically, right? So this executable will contain the malware, and then from there the infection starts. So this is the difference between the evil and the original file. So any questions until now?
Surya, this you took PDF and doc file, correct?
Yes, sir.
Any other files also you can run it?
The technology can be created, but it depends on what sort of file it is. So basically, what we should aim for is all the files that are commonly used within an organization. So even the Excel files,
correct,
and
or
other sort
PPT
of
with
presentations,
or
like
XML files. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. But this majorly for organizations which are receiving file from outside also, right? So that will mainly. Yes,
Surya, this if it can run on JPG or image files, can be used as a steganography filtering tool also.
Yes, sir. So that is the stegno part. We'll get to that. But it will basically strip the stegno code from the image file.
Yeah.
So we'll just see that once again. So these are all just the different APIs that we have. WS3 is one of our systems to detect based on a hash, whether a file is a known file or a whitelisted file. WS4 is again used for checking whether a file is malware or not. These are not that much important for this, but WS4 AR is the system actually that we've started with, which can check if a file is infected or not using multiple antiviruses. WS6 is something interesting that we made. Was this system will detect anonymizing emails and IP addresses, right? So this system can be integrated where a login or registration system is there, or where a data collection form is there. So are we aware what is a temporary email? You heard about it? I can show. So there is this website called 10-minute mail. Like this, there are many websites. Okay. These websites allow you to create like a temporary email. You can see this, right? This email can be provided when doing a registration, or when doing a login, or filling a form. In case the website sends a verification or something like that, right? The person uses this, then they become very hard to track, right? Because at least an email ID you can track a person, but if they use something like this, and on top of that, if they use any system to block their IP address, that they're using some sort of proxy, or they're using some sort of Tor or something like that, right? The system will tell whether the person is using the system. So this is built basically for financial organizations, not for common websites like news portals and things like that, right? So this is more for like a financial organization where they require to know who the person who's using the system is, right? So that is where this comes in, and this is very useful especially when now not a lot of organizations are now moving to fully on phone creation of bank accounts and things like that. So that's where this might come in. So it will tell if an email is used in a de-anonymizing, and also if a IP address is something that is a shared IP or something like that. So WS7 is the CDR, right? So this is the system which contains the content disarmament reconstruction, and this system proactively protects against known and unknown threats. So there are some exploits which are yet undiscovered in these different readers. So you have Adobe Reader, Doc, Foxit. All of these are different PDF readers. Even the Firefox, when you're opening a PDF file, or in Chrome when you're opening a PDF file, there have been specific exploits for those browser-based PDF viewers also, right? So this system aims to, remove the PDF, remove the exploits from the PDF, right, and make them not useful. So this provides a zero-day protection, right? And WS7 image, this is what we are discussing about. So how it works is we know the certain locations where the stegno malware or the stegno code is injected, and the system removes those contents, fills it up, and also it can convert it back into a JPEG file and then provide it back, so that any sort of stegno is removed by the JPEG compression also. And PDF is again for PDF and doc. Yeah. So that's the end of the slide. I think we have some 15 minutes for questions.
Suriya, so that question I think already I had. Right now, or you are saying that this is capable of checking the other form of the files also, whether it's a JPEG or PPT or any extension. Am I right?
Common CDR might, but our CDR currently we have only docx.
Okay.
And
okay.
image
Okay.
files.
Okay. And the second question I had that you said somewhere if it's going to be a regular from a particular origin, right? It's
Yes.
happening. Then the CDR can detect that particular IP, and you may even block it. Am I right? You have the capacity to block.
The CDR does not do that, sir. So
okay.
basically, what the CDR here does is, see, the file is given. Okay, it's a system which doesn't store anything. Also, that is one of the things. Of course, we are privacy. This thing, so that's also I have to tell, right? So this thing can again be hosted internally, right? And also, this is a system that does not store the files. Once it's converted and taken by the backend, this will be deleted here, so that there's no copy of it. But what it does, a file is given, it will tell whether the file is infected or not infected, but still it will clean the file and provide it back, even if it is infected. So here the backend will have to check this file is infected. Who's this person who is given the infected file? Have they done it earlier before, right? So if a person keeps logging and keeps uploading infected files, that is a person you will want to get out of the system, right? Or that is a person you might want to warn, saying you're keeping on uploading infected files. What is wrong with your system? That is also a possibility. Like I said, there are two reasons why someone might upload an infected file or a exploit. One is they are genuinely, they're maliciously an attacker, right? Or they are actually a genuine normal user, right? But their computer has been infected by somebody else, and that person is keeping on inserting, or that malware is keeping on inserting these exploits into the files.
So I think my question is this. So the CDR is tracking who is uploading, and let's say first time if it is infected, and second time is also it's getting infected, then I go to the identifying even the IP, and then I may even contact them or whatever. Am I right? So the tool is it tracking is my question.
No, sir, it does not do that, sir. The tracking has to be done by the application. So
okay.
the API can be integrated into the application. Once the application gets back the verdict, it can store, okay, this person is uploaded a infected file. Then if it happens again, it can detect it and it can do the actions.
Okay.
The API does not do that, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay. Yeah.
So any other questions on CDR or technicalities of it, we can discuss, of course.
Yeah, this is Dinesh here. This APT involves a lot of resources, like, state-sponsored one you said. But do you think like organizations like us, we're not like big, like let's say 400,000-500,000 employees, should we worry about that? Because, there is a lot of opportunity cost involved for the states. They have a lot of resources and money involved, but, do you think they attack us? I mean, what is your take on this? Like small organizations, should they worry based on what?
Based on the threat of that organization, sir. So basically, if they're a financial organization, I would feel any finance organization which is in the BFSI sector should have something like this for all the files that are being uploaded from a public perspective. See, when we are having so many forms and so many pages, right? let's say you're an insurance provider also, that also will come under this. You're an insurance provider, you require uploading of so many files, or you're a bank and then you're requiring KYC documents to be uploaded. We have to think, what is the impact if one of the person who is checking these KYC files or these documents gets infected, their computer gets infected? What is the impact? So basically, whether it is just some employee who has a very few files, okay, that might be a risk that we are ready to take. If the person is having access to all the backends, or the person is having access to a lot of KYC files, right, then not only it becomes a threat to the organization, it also becomes a risk to the other customers of the organization, right? So the data, KYC data and things like that, that the person was checking earlier or is going to check in the future, will also get exposed to the attacker. So for financial organization, I feel at least that this is something like this, right, is something that's going to be quite soon a requirement.
Anil, do you have any questions?
We are not on the technical side, but on the on the concept side. Size, can you give me one example of this attack and how dangerous or how much damage it brought?
Right.
Anything you have
So
come across?
I told you this example of Google Nurses. So what happened was there was a invoicing system of Google, right, where their their vendors could upload the invoices,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
When the vendors was see, there are many people who are vendors of this big organization. I just say big organization, right? So when the vendor, there's so many having so many vendors, if one of them gets compromised, right, they are logged to this internal system of this organization gets compromised also, right? So some other way they get compromised. So what the attacker then does, they upload the malicious file, hoping that it is opened on the other side by somebody who has an exploit, and that is what happened here. So they used a 0-day, right, to infect the system. So there are for sale a lot of 0 days for Microsoft Word, Adobe, Foxit, and these are available both on the dark end, and there are some organizations also selling these exploits for specific amounts, and those can be weaponized into these infection vectors.
Okay. And what sort of attacks can be initiated? Any form of cyber attack that we are aware of?
Yes, sir. So that's what happens. So basically, it's like the person has a malware implant on the system. So it's like, see, there has been this long, at least with non-technical people who are working within organizations, that earlier we used to have macros and things like that, but now that also is reducing, but the exploits is now increasing. Okay, and people are not aware now. Little bit, some people are aware that if any macros alert come, you should not click. Even that is something that happens after a lot of training, right? But what is sorry, completely forgot my point. What was the question, sir?
The question is, what sort of attacks can be initiated?
Right. So the docx can, when it's run, basically it is running a malware, and it is running an exploit. And that malware can contain anything. So it can contain something that can allow them to scan the system, jump to another system, or from the HR system they can go to the technical team, or from the KYC team they can go to the technical team. From there they can pivot inside, go to the DC. So all those sort of combinations are possible.
Okay. So basically, all these fraudsters which we see in YouTube, they take over from any desk and do this finance fraud. They can just put one of these files in the victim's computer and their job is done. They don't have to do basically anything on the call.
Yes, they have full access to that system. So this is not something that the fraudsters use. That what you see
not
is
today.
that,
Maybe it's very technical, highly qualified fraudsters. Okay.
It's possible. Yes.
What's your plan to promote this solution? I mean, this is the first time I have heard about malicious files, but what's your plan to promote this and maybe to help?
I guess that's not my domain. That's something maybe Anu can get on. Basically, I'm only on the technical side, so I'm
Okay,
not on
okay.
the
No, then
coding
it's
or
not for you.
So what we're planning is initially to first have all our existing customers sign up for this, and then as we go, also promote the product for new customers, new signups.
Is this will be available for personal use if anyone?
this
You
is
mean
not.
for an
Yeah,
you mean for an
I don't think it's.
individual?
Yeah, so I don't
Yeah,
think
for
the
individual.
system is there for individuals. So basically, it's there. It's like an API which is integrated into different applications that the organization already
Okay,
has.
okay. So
So
like
if a bank is having, yes, sir.
so like Satya sir, we were talking about the potential vulnerabilities coming with the form. So maybe Survey Monkey
Mhm.
can buy this solution and add this
Yes,
in their
yes,
file upload. So okay, oh,
yes,
got it, got it.
yes,
Perfect.
yes, Suriya.
Thanks,
Yes.
mate.
So SurveyMonkey, I don't think it allows uploading files, but I think it is only a place where you can fill forms. Maybe I'm wrong. Um,
No, it allows
it
We
allows.
can
Okay,
PDF,
okay.
actually.
docx, and so on.
We
Right.
have
So that
Satya
might be
sir
a
with
better
us,
of a
so we
time.
can.
Right, right. So that is a potential attack vector, right? So if I guess that's what you were discussing. So if somebody uploads a malicious file and that file gets delivered to you, right? Then that is the infection vector. So that's basically the attack that is you're speaking about, largely for financial organizations and banking organizations, which is a very big risk now. And other organizations also, like now we are seeing again, like I said, this sort of file-based, doc-based is something that is very famously used by state-sponsored attackers.
It's basically applicable for any organization where there is a data coming in the form of an attachment from an external network.
So extending that question, does it connect it to the email services kind of a thing, or will it be a standalone agent based on the each other mesh system?
So it's an API. So any sort of integration for email has to happen by the email team. But currently, what we have built it is for the web applications and mobile applications. So the API has to be built, has to be used how it is required. So it's basically a set of 5-6 requests. We have different JSON formats for that, and then the submission is done, and then a result is given after a few minutes, and then the system can store it.
So it is a what do you call it, service based or a product? I mean, license based.
Both, sir. So it's there as an on-prem and also a cloud solution.
Thank you.
Now, sir, it's not a technical question, but it's too much techy, I think Suriya went into. But yes, my question is like these APTs are sponsored, state sponsored, right? Like North Korea, rogue kind of states. And when
Yes.
you take an example of Israel and America, that's what they the stuckness, when they struck
Yes.
this nuclear power plant in Iran.
Yes.
Those are the places I think APTs are used, right? Do you think these small players, like when it is APT, my understanding was even it's APT, it's like big players like states are involved in that. I'm a little bit confused in the classification. Anybody can clear this? Not a technical question.
Yes, sir. So I'm gladly. Sir. So APT is advanced persistent threat, right? So basically, what is the threat to a this thing, right? So basically, what we are only seeing currently is the end result. So when we see Stuxnet, okay, this specific thing went into an issue, it blew up or something, right? Or when it comes to when in the Middle East there was a attack in which the oil rigs had an issue because of a cyber attack, right? So that is only what we are seeing is post exploitation of the APT. The attacker is choosing to do this specific thing. I'm not sure you're aware. Last year we had an incident in one of our electricity grids. Last year.
Oh yeah, they had. I mean, they will attack.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
question was, Is it's going to be bigger attack, massive attack, so that a lot of
No. So what these guys do is they will already have infected majority of the organizations, or they would have tried to infect majority of the organization of a country. So this will also include financial organizations and other such organizations which are of importance and which are having a large customer base. So any company or organization which is interacting with multiple people, where tomorrow you're not able to log into your net banking, what sort of issue and what sort of chaos it might cause to the country which is being attacked, right? So that is the thing. So for an APT, what we are only seeing as news is the end result, and APTs often always have a lot more infected, a lot more that they are not showing because they are not doing any action. They are only covertly listening on information.
attack, right, Surya? It's kind of
Yes,
a
sir.
zero-day attack also.
Yes. So all these APTs, they don't happen overnight. So tomorrow, one country is going to problem with another country. They don't today decide that. They would have already infected some large section of computers years back.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And when it comes to specific exploits like these are available. At least the older exploits for the older readers, like Office 2010, Office 2007, 12. I think even 18. I think there's a version 18. There are exploits available. If the organization has not updated the reader, right, then that exploit will still work. So if they're not having updated Office, or like many organizations in India do not have an official licensed, they are not having updates, right? So all those times the malware can infect the system. So it doesn't have to be specifically an APT attacker. Also for this sort of file-based infection to spread, can be somebody who's also using publicly available exploits.
So you can say exploits as a service. You go and buy it in the market. And
Yes, sir. There are some which are also free now. So not even a market. So you might see a lot of these posts and like detailed breakdowns of exploits by security researchers themselves. They will say this is where the fix is, this is where the patch is, and from that many people are able to figure out okay, if this is the patch, this is the exploit, and then they're able to reverse engineer vulnerability, exploit that is exploiting that vulnerability. Okay, sir.
Navi sir, would you like to add something?
No, nothing specific, but the only thing we can say is that the CDR technology is trying to address the requirements which are beyond the normal, you can say, malware detection softwares. At this point of time, I think this is an enterprise level solution, requires integration with the APIs, as Surya was telling, which means that the individuals are still not the target audience for this kind of software. And I'm not aware of the costs. How do they compare with, say, some of the enterprise level, you can say, malware detection and prevention software? I presume that this will be slightly more expensive than the other normal malware, but the technology is totally different, and hopefully this technology is more reliable than a signature-based malware system. So it's good to know about it. Thank you, Mr. Surya. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.